You are not ignored because you lack value. You are ignored because you lack clarity. Every opportunity you want, respect, influence, confidence, leadership, comes down to one skill: how you communicate. Not how smart you are. Not how hard you work. How clearly you speak. How confidently you listen. How powerfully you respond. Right now, your words are either opening doors or quietly closing them. This audiobook will teach you how to speak with certainty, listen with authority, and communicate so clearly that people feel your presence before you finish your sentence. This is not about talking more. This is about being understood every time you speak. Chapter 1. Stop talking, start transmitting. Most people think communication is about talking. It's not. That belief alone is why they are misunderstood, overlooked, ignored, and dismissed. Communication is not expression. It is transfer of understanding. If the other person does not clearly understand what you meant, what you want, or what you stand for, then communication did not happen. It doesn't matter how long you spoke. It doesn't matter how intelligent your idea was. It doesn't matter how emotionally invested you felt. If they don't get it, you didn't communicate. Period. That's the key. You have a choice. You can keep talking to feel heard, or you can start transmitting so you are understood. Most people choose the first option. They speak to release emotion, not to deliver clarity. They talk to sound busy, not to sound precise. They confuse movement with progress. And that's exactly why their words don't land. Look at meetings. People speak for minutes without saying anything. Sentences pile on top of sentences. Explanations stretch longer and longer. By the end, nobody remembers the point, because there was no point. Look at interviews. Candidates ramble. They over-explain. They chase approval instead of delivering value. They answer questions that weren't asked. And when the interview ends, they wonder why they didn't get the job. Look at relationships. Arguments don't explode because of disagreement. They explode because of unclear communication, vague expectations, assumed meanings, unspoken standards. People don't feel heard because nobody is transmitting clearly. This isn't about intelligence. It's not about vocabulary. It's not about confidence tricks. It's about discipline. If your message isn't landing, it's not clear enough. Read that again. Slower. If your message isn't landing, it's not clear enough. That sentence alone can change how you speak for the rest of your life, if you let it. Most people blame the listener. They don't listen. They don't get me. They're not smart enough. That's weakness disguised as frustration. Strong communicators take responsibility. They assume the burden of clarity. They refine the message until it lands. You don't need their permission. You need precision. Here's what weak communication looks like. Too many words. Too many ideas at once. Too many qualifiers. Too much emotional noise. You hear phrases like, "I was just trying to say," "What I meant was," "Maybe I didn't explain it properly." That's not bad luck. That's lack of structure. Strong communication is intentional. It begins with a single question. What do I want them to understand when I'm done speaking? Not what you want to say. Not what you feel. What you want understood. That distinction changes everything. Because once you know the outcome, your words become tools, not clutter. This is where most people resist. They think clarity limits them. They think short sentences make them sound simple. They think repetition is boring. They're wrong. Clarity is power. Simplicity is dominance. Repetition is reinforcement. That's the key. Think about leaders. They don't speak in paragraphs. They speak in statements. They don't wander. They direct. They don't explain themselves into weakness. They transmit certainty. You have a choice. You can keep speaking like you're asking for approval. Or you can start speaking like you're delivering information. Stop narrating your thoughts. Start packaging your message. Here's the discipline you must build. One idea, one sentence, one outcome. Before you speak, decide the point. Then remove everything that doesn't serve it. That's not about being cold. It's about being effective. Most people confuse emotional release with communication. They talk to feel better, not to be understood. But real communication isn't therapy. It's transmission. If you want therapy, vent. If you want results, clarify. This applies everywhere. At work, at home, with friends, with strangers. If you don't define the message, the listener will define it for you, and usually wrong. That's why misunderstandings happen. That's why intentions get twisted. That's why good ideas die quietly. Because clarity was optional. From now on, clarity is mandatory. You don't need to talk more. You need to say less, with purpose. Here's a rule to remember. The longer you speak, the more your message weakens, unless every sentence reinforces the same point. That's the key. Weak communicators add information to feel safe. Strong communicators remove information to feel precise. And yes, it feels uncomfortable at first. Silence feels risky. Short sentences feel exposed. But discipline always feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. You have a choice. You can keep hiding behind words, or you can stand behind meaning. Here's a practical shift you must make immediately. Stop explaining. Start stating. Instead of, "What I'm trying to say is that maybe we could consider." This is the priority. Instead of, "I feel like this might not be working the way we thought." This isn't working. Here's why. Instead of, "I just want to make sure everyone understands." Here's the takeaway. You don't need their permission to be clear. Clarity is not aggression. It's respect. When you speak clearly, you respect the listener's time. When you ramble, you steal it. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. If people regularly misunderstand you, the pattern is you, not them. That's not an insult. That's empowerment. Because if it's you, you can fix it. And fixing it doesn't require charisma. It requires discipline. You don't need a louder voice. You need a sharper message. If your message isn't landing, it's not clear enough. Say it again internally. Let it settle. This chapter is not about becoming impressive. It's about becoming understood. And once you are understood, influence follows naturally. Respect follows naturally. Confidence follows naturally. Because clarity removes friction. This is where communication stops being emotional and starts being strategic. You are no longer speaking to fill space. You are speaking to create alignment. One message, one direction, one result. That's the standard now. And as you move forward, remember this. Every word you say either sharpens your message or dulls it. Every sentence either moves understanding forward or pulls it backward. You have a choice. Choose discipline. You've stopped talking for the sake of talking. You've started transmitting with intent. And now that you understand what communication really is, it's time to refine the most dangerous enemy of clarity, confusion disguised as intelligence. You've learned to transmit. Now you must learn why clarity beats intelligence every time. Chapter 2. Clarity beats intelligence every time. Most people think intelligence wins. They believe if they know more, say more, explain more, they will be respected more. That belief is costing them influence every single day. People don't follow the smartest voice. They follow the clearest one. That's the key. You can be the most intelligent person in the room and still be ignored. You can have the best idea and watch it die in silence. You can understand everything and still fail to move anyone. But because intelligence that isn't clear is useless to everyone except the person holding it. You have a choice. You can keep trying to impress people with complexity, or you can lead them with clarity. Most people choose complexity because it feels safe. Complex words hide uncertainty. Long explanations hide lack of conviction. Jargon hides fear of being judged. But clarity exposes you. And exposure requires discipline. Look at real life. In meetings, the expert talks for 10 minutes. Charts, data, technical language. By the end, people nod, but they're lost. Then someone else speaks. 30 seconds. Simple words. One clear point. And that's the voice the room follows. Not because it was smarter, because it was clearer. Clarity creates confidence. Confusion kills trust. Read that again. Clarity creates confidence. Confusion kills trust. When people don't understand you, they don't trust you. They hesitate. They disengage. They mentally check out. Not because they're lazy, because the human brain rejects confusion. Psychologically, the brain is wired for efficiency. When information is unclear, the brain feels threatened. Threat creates resistance. So every time you speak without clarity, you trigger resistance. That's the key. Intelligent people often sabotage themselves because they refuse to simplify. They think simplifying means dumbing down. It doesn't. Simplifying means distilling. It's not about removing intelligence. It's about removing noise. It's not about sounding basic. It's about being understood. You don't need their permission to be clear. Here's where this shows up painfully. Interviews. The intelligent candidate explains the entire background. They walk through every step. They add context. They over-deliver information. The interviewer gets tired. Then another candidate answers with structure. Clear point. Clear example. Clear outcome. Who gets remembered? Not the smartest. The clearest. Clarity creates confidence. Confusion kills trust. Now let's talk about leadership. Leaders are not walking encyclopedias. They are walking signals. They reduce complexity. They create direction. They turn chaos into order. If you can't explain your idea simply, you don't own it yet. That's not an insult. That's a standard. Intelligence lives in your head. Clarity lives in other people's minds. And communication only counts when it reaches their mind. You have a choice. You can keep polishing your knowledge, or you can start sharpening your message. Here's the psychological trap intelligent people fall into. They tie their self-worth to being seen as smart. So they speak to protect identity, not to create impact. They fear that if they simplify, others will think less of them. The opposite is true. People trust those who make things simple. People follow those who reduce confusion. People respect those who bring clarity under pressure. That's the key. Confusion signals uncertainty, even when you are certain internally. And perception matters more than intention. So here's what you must stop doing. Stop proving how much you know. Stop stacking ideas. Stop answering questions nobody asked. That behavior isn't intelligence. It's insecurity. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. Now here's what you must start doing. Before you speak, ask yourself one question. What is the single takeaway I want them to remember? Not 3. Not 5. What? Then everything you say must serve that takeaway. If it doesn't, cut it. Yes, cut it, even if it's interesting. Even if it's impressive. Even if you worked hard to learn it. That's discipline. Clarity is subtraction. Every strong communicator understands this rule. If the listener can't repeat your point in one sentence, you weren't clear. That's the test. Not applause. Not compliments. Retention. Clarity creates confidence. Confusion kills trust. Now let's get practical. Here's a simple structure you must adopt. Put reason. Example. That's it. No detours. No side stories. No verbal wandering. Put reason. Example. This structure forces clarity. It keeps you honest. It keeps you focused. And yes, at first it will feel restrictive. But discipline always feels restrictive before it feels powerful. You have a choice. You can speak freely and be ignored. Or you can speak deliberately and be followed. Another truth you need to accept. People don't reward intelligence. They reward usefulness. And usefulness comes from clarity. Think about the most trusted voices in your life. They don't overwhelm you. They calm you. They simplify things you thought were complicated. That's authority. Authority is calm clarity under pressure. Not speed. Not volume. Not vocabulary. Clarity. Now here's where most people fail to apply this. They wait until they're speaking to organize their thoughts. That's weakness. Strong communicators organize before they open their mouth. They do the hard work privately so they can speak simply publicly. That's discipline. So here's your instruction. Before any important conversation, do this. Write your point in one sentence. If it takes 2 sentences, it's not clear yet. If it takes a paragraph, you're confused. Fix it before you speak. You don't need their permission to be prepared. This is how clarity replaces anxiety. Because when your message is clear, your delivery becomes confident automatically. Confidence is a byproduct of clarity. Not personality. Not charisma. Clarity creates confidence. Confusion kills trust. Say it again internally. This chapter is not asking you to become less intelligent. It's asking you to become more effective. Because intelligence that doesn't move people is wasted potential. And wasted potential creates frustration. That frustration leaks into your tone, your body language, your energy. Then people feel it and pull away. Clarity fixes that. One message, one direction, one outcome. That's how trust is built. That's how leaders are followed. That's how your words start carrying weight. You've learned that clarity beats intelligence every time. You've learned that discipline, not brilliance, is what makes communication powerful. Now there's one more enemy standing in the way of clear communication. And it's not vocabulary. It's not intelligence. It's fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being seen. You've simplified your message. Now it's time to remove the fear that strangles it. You've chosen clarity over complexity. Now you must choose courage over approval. Chapter 3. Kill the fear of judgment. Fear is the silent killer of communication. Not fear of speaking. Fear of judgment. That's the real enemy. Fear tightens your voice. It shortens your sentences. It drains authority before your words even land. You don't sound unsure because you lack confidence. You sound unsure because you're monitoring reactions while you speak. That's the key. The moment you start watching faces, tones, body language, you stop transmitting and start performing. And performance kills power. You have a choice. You can speak to be accepted, or you can speak to be respected. Most people choose acceptance. They soften their words. They add disclaimers. They apologize before they're challenged. They shrink their message to avoid discomfort. And then they wonder why nobody takes them seriously. Fear of judgment doesn't show up as silence. It shows up as overadjustment. You explain too much. You smile when the point is serious. You say, maybe, when you mean, no. You say, I think, when you know. That's not politeness. That's fear. And fear always leaks into communication. Psychologically, this is what's happening. When you fear judgment, your brain shifts into protection mode. It prioritizes safety over clarity, approval over truth. So instead of delivering a message, you start managing perception. You're not asking, is my message clear? You're asking, do they like me? That question will sabotage you every time. The moment you stop trying to be liked, you start being respected. Read that again. The moment you stop trying to be liked, you start being respected. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. People respect clarity, certainty, and calm. They don't respect emotional negotiation. You don't need their permission to speak clearly. Now let's be honest. Fear of judgment is not about other people. It's about identity. You fear that if they disagree, you'll lose value. You fear that if they judge, you'll be exposed. You fear that if you're wrong, you'll be diminished. That's the flaw. And here's the correction. It's not about fear. It's about discipline. Disciplined communicators accept judgment as neutral data, not a threat. They understand this truth. Judgment is inevitable. Confusion is optional. You can be judged for being clear, or you can be judged for being weak. Either way, judgment happens. So choose the version that builds authority. You have a choice. Here's how fear shows up in real life. In meetings, you hedge. You wait for cues. You soften your stance based on reactions. By the time you finish, your message has lost its spine. In conversations, you over-explain. You justify obvious points. You try to preempt disagreement. That behavior doesn't prevent judgment. It invites it. People sense uncertainty instantly, and uncertainty makes them question everything you say. Fear doesn't make you safe. It makes you forgettable. That's the key. Now let's talk about how to kill it. Not suppress it. Not deny it. Kill it. First, you must stop scanning for approval. When you speak, your eyes don't dart. Your tone doesn't rise at the end of sentences. Your body doesn't apologize. You deliver the message. Then you stop. Silence is strength. If someone disagrees, you don't rush to fix it. You let it exist. You don't need their permission. Here's a powerful rule. Say what you mean. Then let the room breathe. Fear hates silence because silence removes control. But silence is where authority lives. Second, you must remove apologetic language from your vocabulary. No more just. No more kind of. No more, I might be wrong but. Those phrases weaken your message before it arrives. If you are unsure, say so directly. If you are sure, speak cleanly. Clarity beats comfort. The moment you stop trying to be liked, you start being respected. Third, you must accept this reality. Not everyone will agree with you. Not everyone will like you. Not everyone will approve. That's not a flaw. That's leadership. People who try to please everyone communicate nothing, because their message keeps changing. Discipline means choosing consistency over comfort. You say what needs to be said, even when it creates tension. Not aggression. Not arrogance. Clarity. Fear tells you to protect yourself. Discipline tells you to deliver the message. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing approval, approval increases. Because confidence is contagious. People trust those who are not negotiating their value mid-sentence. That's the key. Now let's get practical again. Here's a simple exercise you must practice. Before any important conversation, ask yourself, what am I afraid they'll think? Name it. They'll think I'm wrong. They'll think I'm rude. They'll think I'm not smart. Then say this internally. So what? That's not disrespect. That's detachment. Fear survives on imagined consequences. Clarity destroys it with reality. Most of the time, the judgment you fear never comes. And when it does, you're still standing. You spoke clearly. You honored your message. You didn't betray yourself. That builds internal authority. And internal authority always shows externally. You have a choice. You can keep shrinking to avoid imagined judgment. Or you can expand into clarity and let judgment fall where it may. One builds tension. The other builds respect. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. Discipline to hold your tone steady. Discipline to finish sentences without trailing off. Discipline to let silence do its work. This is how fear dies. Not in one moment, but in repeated acts of clarity. Each time you speak without apologizing. Each time you pause without rushing. Each time you state instead of explain. Fear weakens. Authority grows. The moment you stop trying to be liked, you start being respected. Let that become a rule you live by. You've learned how fear strangles your communication. You've learned how discipline restores it. Now there's another level. Even fearless speakers lose power when their tone asks for approval. You've killed the fear. Now you must speak from certainty, not permission. You've removed hesitation. Now it's time to command with your voice. Chapter 4. Speak from certainty, not permission. Most people don't speak. They ask. They ask with their tone. They ask with their posture. They ask with the way their sentences trail off at the end. They sound like they're waiting for approval to finish the thought. That's the problem. Confident communicators don't ask for approval with their tone. They don't seek permission to exist in the conversation. They don't negotiate their presence sentence by sentence. They speak from certainty. That's the key. This chapter is about one shift that changes everything. You stop asking. You start stating. You don't need their permission. Let's be clear about something right now. Speaking from certainty does not mean you are always right. It does not mean you are aggressive. It does not mean you are arrogant. It means you are grounded. And grounded people sound different. They don't rush. They don't hedge. They don't soften truth to make it more comfortable. They say it like it belongs in the room. Say that again internally. Say it like it belongs in the room. Now let's talk about what weak communication actually sounds like. You hear phrases like, I just think that maybe, I'm not sure but, this might be wrong but. These phrases do one thing. They remove authority before the message arrives. By the time the listener hears your idea, you've already told them not to trust it. That's not humility. That's hesitation. And hesitation is contagious. If you don't believe your words deserve space, why should anyone else? You have a choice. You can keep cushioning your message. Or you can deliver it clean. Most people confuse politeness with permission seeking. They think soft language is respectful. It's not. Clarity is respectful. Certainty is respectful. Wasting time with verbal padding is not. You don't need their permission to be clear. Here's the psychological root of the problem. When you speak from permission, your brain is asking, is this okay to say? Am I allowed to take up space? Will this upset someone? That internal dialogue hijacks your delivery. Your voice lifts at the end of sentences. Your pace speeds up. Your posture collapses slightly. And even if your words are strong, your tone betrays you. Tone is truth. That's the key. Now contrast that with certainty. Certainty comes from decision. When you decide what you believe, what you want, and what matters, your voice settles naturally. You don't perform certainty. You align with it. And alignment is felt immediately. Let's get practical. Here's the difference between hesitant language and declarative language. Hesitant, I think we should maybe try a different approach. Declarative, this approach isn't working. We need to change it. Same idea. Completely different impact. Hesitant, I was wondering if you had time to talk. Declarative, I need to talk with you. Let me know when you're available. No apology. No pressure. Just clarity. Say it like it belongs in the room. Declarative language does not demand agreement. It simply occupies space confidently. And here's the truth. People are not offended by certainty. They are confused by hesitation. Hesitation makes people uneasy because it signals instability. Certainty creates safety, even when people disagree. That's the key. Now here's where discipline comes in. Most people wait to feel certain before they speak with certainty. That's backwards. Certainty is not a feeling. It's a choice. You choose to stand behind your words. You choose to finish your sentences. You choose not to apologize for clarity. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. Discipline to remove weak language. Discipline to slow your pace. Discipline to let statements land without chasing validation. You have a choice. You can keep checking reactions mid-sentence. Or you can complete the thought and let the listener respond. One is weakness. The other is leadership. Here's an important distinction. Speaking from certainty does not mean you never change your mind. It means you don't wobble while you're speaking. If new information appears, you adjust. Clearly. You say, I've reconsidered. Here's the updated position. That's strength. Weakness is sounding unsure while pretending to be sure. That's what people don't trust. Say it like it belongs in the room. Now let's talk about posture and breath, because certainty is physical. When you speak from permission, your body collapses slightly. Your shoulders round. Your breath stays shallow. When you speak from certainty, your body opens. You breathe lower. You speak slower. This isn't performance. It's alignment. So here's a simple instruction. Before you speak, exhale. Drop the shoulders. Plant your feet. Then speak. That one breath will change your tone instantly. You don't need their permission to take that breath. Now let's address a common fear. What if I sound too strong? What if I sound rude? What if people don't like it? Here's the reality. Clear people are sometimes disliked. Unclear people are always ignored. Choose your consequence. You have a choice. And remember this. You can always soften after clarity. But you can't fix confusion. So speak clearly first. Adjust later if needed. That's discipline. Here's another rule you must live by. Statements over questions. Stop turning statements into questions. Instead of, we should probably start now, to, we're starting now. Instead of, that might be a problem, to, that's a problem. Questions invite doubt. Statements create direction. Say it like it belongs in the room. Now let's talk about permission-seeking disguised as friendliness. Smiling through serious points. Laughing after strong statements. Adding filler words to reduce tension. That behavior undermines authority. You can be warm without being weak. Warmth comes from presence, not from dilution. Certainty does not remove kindness. It removes confusion. That's the key. You're not here to be harmless. You're here to be effective. And effectiveness requires conviction. So here's what you must stop doing. Stop ending sentences upward. Stop softening clear points. Stop apologizing for taking space. And here's what you must start doing. Start finishing sentences firmly. Start speaking one beat slower. Start trusting that clarity is enough. It's not about being loud. It's not about dominance. It's about discipline. Discipline to own your words. You don't need their permission. Now let's anchor this chapter. Speaking from certainty means this. You decide first. You speak second. You adjust last. Most people reverse the order. They speak. They watch reactions. They decide how to feel. That creates chaos. Certainty creates order. And order is what people follow. Say it like it belongs in the room. Let that become a standard. You've stopped asking for permission with your tone. You've learned to speak from certainty. But even the clearest, most certain message can lose power if it's delivered too fast. Speed reveals anxiety. Pace reveals control. You've claimed certainty. Now you must learn how to slow down and hold the room. You've stopped asking. Now it's time to master control. Chapter 5. Slow down or lose control. Speed exposes you. Every time you rush your words, you reveal anxiety. Every time you accelerate your pace, you surrender control. Speed signals urgency. Pace signals power. That's the key. Strong communicators are not fast. They are deliberate. They choose when to speak. They choose when to pause. They choose when to let silence do the work. Slow speech equals strong presence. Say it again. Slow speech equals strong presence. Most people don't speak fast because they're efficient. They speak fast because they're nervous. They rush to finish before they're interrupted. They rush to explain before they're challenged. They rush because silence feels dangerous. And that fear leaks into everything they say. You have a choice. You can rush and lose control. Or you can slow down and take it. There's a reason calm voices dominate rooms. Psychologically, speed triggers skepticism. When someone speaks too fast, the brain interprets urgency as instability. Fast speech feels reactive. Slow speech feels intentional. That's not opinion. That's biology. The human nervous system responds to calm signals with trust. When you slow down, people relax. When people relax, they listen. When they listen, your influence multiplies. That's the key. Look at leaders who command attention. They don't rush sentences. They don't cram ideas together. They don't fear pauses. They speak. They stop. They let the words land. And the room follows their rhythm. Slow speech equals strong presence. Now let's get honest. Most people believe speaking fast makes them sound smart. They think speed equals competence. It doesn't. Speed equals noise. Competence sounds calm. Authority sounds grounded. Confidence sounds unhurried. You don't need their permission to slow down. Here's what rushing actually does. It compresses meaning. It blurs emphasis. It overwhelms the listener. Even good ideas lose power when delivered too fast. Clarity requires space. And space is created by pace. That's the key. Now let's talk about where speed comes from. Speed is fear dressed up as efficiency. Fear of being interrupted. Fear of losing attention. Fear of silence. Silence exposes presence. And presence requires discipline. So instead of slowing down, people speed up. They think momentum will save them. It won't. Speed creates pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. Mistakes destroy credibility. It's not about pace. It's about discipline. Discipline to breathe before speaking. Discipline to finish sentences fully. Discipline to allow pauses without filling them. You have a choice. You can keep racing your thoughts, or you can let your thoughts lead. Here's a powerful truth. The fastest speaker is rarely the most influential. The slowest speaker often is, because slow speakers decide the tempo of the room. When you slow down, others slow down to match you. You control the rhythm. That's leadership. Real-life example. Think about a high-stakes meeting. Everyone is tense. People talk fast. Voices overlap. Then one person speaks slowly. Clear tone. Measured pace. No rush. The room shifts. Eyes turn. Noise drops. Attention locks in. Nothing changed except speed. That's power. Slow speech equals strong presence. Now here's the mistake people make. They think slowing down means dragging words. It doesn't. It means intentional spacing. It means finishing sentences cleanly. It means pausing between thoughts. It means letting silence underline your point. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is emphasis. That's the key. Now let's make this practical. Here's what you must stop doing immediately. Stop speaking while inhaling. Stop stacking sentences without pauses. Stop racing to the end of your point. Those habits come from anxiety. And anxiety always weakens authority. Here's what you must start doing. Pause before you speak. Pause after important points. Pause when tension rises. Those pauses are not awkward. They are anchors. They ground you. They center the listener. They give your words weight. You don't need their permission to pause. Now let's talk about breathing, because pace starts in the body. Fast speech comes from shallow breathing. Shallow breathing comes from tension. So here's a discipline you must practice. Before you speak, breathe out. Not in. That exhale signals calm to your nervous system. Your shoulders drop. Your chest opens. Your voice settles. One breath. Immediate control. That's the key. Now here's another truth most people miss. Speed makes you predictable. Pace makes you commanding. When you speak slowly, people don't know when you'll continue. They wait. Waiting is attention. And attention is influence. Slow speech equals strong presence. Now let's address the fear directly. What if I lose them? What if they get bored? What if I sound awkward? Here's the reality. People don't get bored by pauses. They get bored by clutter. They don't disengage because you slow down. They disengage because you say too much. Slow speech forces you to say less. That's discipline. It's not about being slow. It's about being selective. Every sentence must earn its place. That's power. You have a choice. You can fill silence to soothe yourself. Or you can let silence work for you. Now let's talk about emotional control. When emotions rise, speed increases. Anger speeds you up. Nervousness speeds you up. Excitement speeds you up. If you want to stay in control, you must slow down when emotions spike. That's how leaders stay steady under pressure. They don't suppress emotion. They regulate pace. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. Discipline to slow down when instinct says rush. That's the moment authority is built. Now let's lock this in. From now on, use speed as a signal. If you hear yourself rushing, stop. First, reset. That pause is not weakness. It's recalibration. You're telling your nervous system, I'm in control. And control is felt immediately. Slow speech equals strong presence. Say it one more time. Slow speech equals strong presence. Now imagine this applied consistently. Your voice deepens slightly. Your words carry more weight. People interrupt you less. Not because you demand it, because your pace commands it. You don't need their permission. This chapter is not about sounding dramatic. It's about sounding grounded. Grounded voices lead. Scattered voices chase. You have a choice. Choose control. Now here's the final insight of this chapter. Speed is reactive. Pace is intentional. Reactive communication responds to fear. Intentional communication creates direction. And direction is what people follow. You've learned how to slow down. You've learned how to hold control through pace. But there's a deeper layer to master. Because slowing down is not enough if you fear silence. Silence is the final test of presence. You've learned to control speed. Now it's time to master the most powerful tool in communication. The space between words. You've slowed your speech. Now you must learn when to say nothing at all. Chapter 6. Master the power of silence. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill it. They explain through it. They apologize for it. That fear costs them authority. Silence is not weakness. Silence is command. That's the key. When you speak non-stop, you surrender control. When you pause, you take it back. Silence finishes what words start. Say that again. Silence finishes what words start. This chapter will change how you use space. Not space in the room, space in the conversation. Because space is where power lives. You have a choice. You can keep talking to feel safe. Or you can pause to be effective. Most people confuse silence with emptiness. They think if they stop talking, they disappear. The opposite is true. When you stop talking, people notice you. Psychologically, silence creates tension. And tension pulls attention. The human brain leans into gaps. It wants completion. It wants resolution. So when you pause, the listener moves toward you mentally. That's command. Silence finishes what words start. Look at what happens when someone makes a clear statement and then stops. No rushing. No filler. No justification. The room shifts. People process. They think. They react internally. That moment, that pause, is where your words gain weight. That's the key. Now let's be honest. Most people talk too much because they're uncomfortable with judgment. Silence feels like exposure. Talking feels like control. But control through noise is an illusion. Real control comes from restraint. You don't need their permission to pause. Here's how silence gets sabotaged. You make a strong point. Then you keep going. You add explanations. You soften the edge. You talk your message into weakness. That's not humility. That's fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being challenged. Fear of sitting in the quiet. It's not about fear. It's about discipline. Discipline to stop speaking when the message is complete. Silence finishes what words start. Now let's talk about strategic pauses. There are 3 moments where silence multiplies your impact. First, before you speak. That pause centers you. It lowers your pace. It signals control. When you pause before speaking, people prepare to listen. Second, after a key point. This is where most people fail. They rush past the most important sentence. Pause there. Let it land. Let it echo. Let it work. Third, when challenged. When someone questions you, silence is your ally. First, breathe. Then respond. That pause signals confidence, not confusion. You have a choice. You can react instantly and lose leverage. Or you can pause and take it. That's the key. Now let's break the myth. Silence does not mean you don't know what to say. It means you know exactly what to say and when. Leaders don't fill silence. They use it. Negotiators don't rush responses. They let silence apply pressure. Teachers don't over-explain. They allow thinking time. Silence finishes what words start. Here's a real-world breakdown. In meetings, the strongest voice is often the quietest one. They speak once. They speak clearly. Then they stop. Others fill the space. They justify. They ramble. And in that contrast, authority becomes obvious. That's not accidental. That's discipline. Now let's address the physical side of silence. When silence appears, your body wants to move. Your mouth wants to talk. Your nervous system wants relief. That urge is the habit you must break. Silence is uncomfortable because it removes distraction. It forces presence. And presence is powerful. You don't need their permission to be present. Here's a simple practice. After you make a point, count to 3 silently. 1, 2, 3. Don't speak. Let the listener respond, or let the silence stand. At first, it will feel long. It's not. It's discipline training. Silence finishes what words start. Now let's talk about when silence should replace words entirely. When emotions are high. When the conversation is reactive. When the other person needs to process. Talking more in those moments makes things worse. Silence de-escalates. Silence stabilizes. It's not avoidance. It's control. You have a choice. You can push harder and escalate. Or you can pause and regain ground. That's the key. Now let's remove another misunderstanding. Silence is not passive. Passive silence avoids responsibility. Powerful silence frames the moment. You don't withdraw. You hold space. You stay grounded. You stay open. You stay calm. That posture communicates more than words ever could. It's not about silence. It's about discipline. Discipline to stay still. Discipline to let the moment breathe. Discipline to trust your message. Now let's talk about over-explaining, the enemy of silence. Over-explaining comes from doubt. You doubt they understood. You doubt your delivery. You doubt your authority. So you add more words. That habit trains people not to listen the first time, because they expect you to keep going. Silence retrains attention. When people know you stop speaking once the point is made, they listen harder. That's power. Silence finishes what words start. Now let's get practical again. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop filling pauses with and you know. Stop rescuing silence with jokes. Stop explaining past the point of clarity. Those habits dilute authority. Here's what you must start doing. Start ending statements cleanly. Start allowing quiet moments. Start trusting that your words can stand alone. You don't need their permission. Silence does the heavy lifting. Now here's an important psychological truth. People reveal themselves in silence. When you stop talking, others talk. They explain. They justify. They show their position. Silence invites disclosure. That's why silence is powerful in negotiation, leadership, and relationships. When you rush to fill space, you rob yourself of information. That's the key. Now let's anchor this lesson. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is communication without noise. It says, I'm comfortable. I'm confident. I don't need to chase. That message is felt instantly. You have a choice. You can fear silence, or you can master it. Mastery means you decide when to speak and when not to. And once you master silence, your words gain gravity. Because scarcity creates value. Words surrounded by silence are heard differently. Silence finishes what words start. Say it one more time. Silence finishes what words start. Now let's lock this chapter in. From now on, silence is a tool, not a threat. You pause with intention. You let points land. You resist the urge to overfill. That restraint builds presence. That presence builds authority. And authority is what communication is really about. You've learned to slow down. You've learned to pause. You've learned to let silence work. Now there's one more skill that turns communication into leadership. Because silence without listening is just emptiness. You've mastered when to stop speaking. Now you must master how to truly hear. You've claimed the power of silence. Now it's time to learn the discipline that separates talkers from leaders. Chapter 7. Listen like a leader. Most people don't listen. They wait. They wait for their turn to talk. They wait to interrupt. They wait to correct. And it shows. They nod, but they're not present. They hear words, but they miss meaning. They respond fast and lead poorly. That's the key. Listening is not passive. Listening is power. Whoever listens best leads best. Say it again. Whoever listens best leads best. This chapter is not about being polite. It's not about being agreeable. It's about influence. Because influence begins where listening starts. You have a choice. You can keep listening to reply. Or you can listen to understand. Only one of those makes you a leader. Most people listen through filters. Their ego, their assumptions, their need to be right. So they don't hear what's actually being said. They hear what they expect. They hear what confirms them. They hear what protects them. That's not listening. That's self-defense. And leaders don't lead from defense. They lead from clarity. Whoever listens best leads best. Let's break the psychology. When someone feels unheard, they disengage. They withhold. They resist. When someone feels heard, their nervous system relaxes. They open up. They cooperate. Deep listening lowers resistance without force. That's power. You don't need their permission to listen well. But they'll give you their attention when you do. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake. Most people think listening means silence. It doesn't. Silence is just the beginning. Listening is active. It's presence. It's focus. It's restraint. It's not about hearing sounds. It's about tracking meaning. It's not about waiting to talk. It's about staying with them. That's the key. Here's how poor listening looks. You interrupt to clarify too soon. You finish their sentences. You mentally rehearse your response. That behavior signals one thing. I matter more than your message. People feel that instantly. And once they feel it, influence is gone. Whoever listens best leads best. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Poor listening comes from impatience. You want to move on. You want resolution. You want control. But leadership requires tolerance for ambiguity. It requires sitting in someone else's perspective without fixing it. That's discipline. It's not about impatience. It's about discipline. Discipline to slow down your mind. Discipline to suspend judgment. Discipline to stay curious. You have a choice. You can rush to be impressive, or you can slow down to be effective. That's the key. Now let's talk about deep listening, the kind leaders use. Deep listening has 3 rules. First, no interruption. Not verbal. Not nonverbal. No nodding to rush them. No sighing. No shifting away. Your body listens too. Second, reflect before responding. You don't reply immediately. You summarize what you heard. Not to parrot. To confirm understanding. Third, ask one precise question. Not 5. What? That question shows attention. It shows respect. It shows leadership. Whoever listens best leads best. Now let's address the internal noise. Your mind will wander. It will judge. It will compare. It will plan. That's normal. Leadership is not the absence of distraction. It's the discipline to return. Each time you notice your attention drift, bring it back. Again. And again. And again. That repetition is training. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. Now let's talk about influence. People follow those who make them feel understood. Not those who talk the most. Not those who dominate. Not those who explain endlessly. They follow clarity. And clarity comes from listening first. You don't need their permission to lead, but you do need their trust. Listening earns trust faster than words ever could. Whoever listens best leads best. Now let's talk about what to stop doing. Stop interrupting to show intelligence. Stop correcting mid-sentence. Stop listening for weaknesses. Those habits are ego-driven. They shrink influence. Here's what to start doing. Start listening for patterns. Start noticing emotional cues. Start tracking what's not being said. That's where real information lives. Leadership is not surface level. It's perceptive. Now here's a critical shift. Leaders listen for intent, not just content. Content is what's said. Intent is why it's said. Most conflicts exist because intent is missed. When you hear intent, you respond accurately. That's the key. Here's a practical exercise. The next conversation you're in, do this. Don't respond immediately. Then say, "What I'm hearing is." Finish the sentence carefully. If they say, "Yes, that's it," you've led well. If they correct you, listen again. That correction is data, not failure. You have a choice. You can defend your interpretation, or you can refine it. Leaders refine. Whoever listens best leads best. Now let's talk about power dynamics. The person who asks the best questions controls the conversation, and the person who listens best asks the best questions. Questions come from attention, not scripts. If you're not listening deeply, your questions will be shallow. And shallow questions signal shallow leadership. That's the key. Now let's deal with impatience again. You might think, "I already know where this is going." That thought is poison. The moment you think you know, you stop listening. And the moment you stop listening, you stop leading. Certainty without curiosity is arrogance. Leadership requires humility, not weakness. Humility means staying open. It's not about ego. It's about discipline. Now let's talk about listening under pressure. When emotions rise, listening drops. People interrupt more. They defend more. They hear less. That's when leadership matters most. In pressure moments, slow down. Lower your voice. Reduce words. Increase listening. That contrast stabilizes the room. You don't need their permission to slow things down. Whoever listens best leads best. Now let's lock this in. Listening is not something you do after you speak. It's something you do before you earn the right to speak. When you listen deeply, your words land harder. Because they're informed. Because they're precise. Because they're needed. Silence gives you space. Listening gives you direction. Together, they create authority. That's the key. You've learned to master silence. You've learned to listen like a leader. Now there's one more discipline that turns listening into results. Because understanding without action is wasted insight. You've slowed down. You've paid attention. You've gained clarity. Now it's time to act with precision. You've learned how to hear the truth. Now you must learn how to respond without hesitation. Chapter 8. Control your tone before your words. Most people think communication is about words. It's not. Words carry information. Tone carries authority. Your tone speaks before your words do. Say it again. Your tone speaks before your words do. Before anyone processes what you're saying, they feel how you're saying it. Before logic lands, energy lands. Before meaning registers, tone decides whether you're taken seriously. That's the key. You can say the right thing in the wrong tone and lose authority instantly. You can say something simple in a grounded tone and command a room. This chapter is about mastering that difference. Because if your tone is weak, your words are wasted. You have a choice. You can keep focusing on what to say, or you can start controlling how you say it. Only one creates leadership. Most people sabotage themselves without realizing it. They soften their tone at the end of sentences. They rush words together. They sound uncertain, even when they know they're right. Not because they lack intelligence, because they lack control. It's not about vocabulary. It's about discipline. Your tone reveals your internal state. An anxious mind produces a shaky tone. A needy mind produces an apologetic tone. A disciplined mind produces a calm, steady tone. That's the key. Tone is the audible expression of self-control. Let's break the psychology. Humans are wired to read tone for safety and status. Long before language, tone signaled dominance, calm, or threat. That wiring never left. So when your tone wavers, people subconsciously downgrade your authority. When your tone is grounded, people lean in. They trust you. They follow you. Your tone speaks before your words do. Now let's expose a common mistake. People try to sound confident by adding force. They get louder. They get sharper. They get aggressive. That's not confidence. That's compensation. True authority is calm, measured, unrushed. It doesn't push. It doesn't plead. It states. That's the key. Leadership tone is not emotional. It's controlled. Now let's talk about what to stop doing. Stop raising your pitch at the end of sentences. That turns statements into questions. Stop filling space with nervous words. Maybe. I think. Those words dilute authority. Stop over-explaining. The more you justify, the less you're believed. It's not about clarity. It's about insecurity. That's not a character flaw. It's a discipline gap. Now here's what to start doing. Lower your speaking pace. Slow it down. When you slow your pace, your tone stabilizes. Slow speech equals strong presence. You don't need their permission to take your time. That pause before you speak, that's power. Your tone speaks before your words do. Now let's talk about breath. Your breath controls your tone. Shallow breathing creates tight, thin sound. Deep breathing creates resonance. Before you speak, breathe. Not dramatically. Not obviously. Just enough to ground your voice. That single breath changes everything. That's the key. Now let's address the internal fear. Fear of judgment tightens the throat. Fear of rejection lifts pitch. Fear of conflict speeds delivery. That fear leaks into tone. And people hear it, even if they don't know why. You have a choice. You can let fear speak for you. Or you can discipline your tone and speak anyway. Courage is not loud. It's steady. Now let's talk about authority without aggression. Authority comes from certainty, not force. When you know what you're saying matters, your tone settles naturally. When you're unsure, your tone searches for approval. You don't need their permission. Say that again. You don't need their permission. Speak as if your words belong in the room. Because they do. That's the key. Now let's break down a practical shift. Next time you speak, do this. End your sentences cleanly. No upward inflection. No trailing off. Finish strong. Then stop. Silence reinforces authority. Words land harder when followed by space. Your tone speaks before your words do. Now let's talk about emotional control. Strong communicators regulate emotion before expression. They don't vent through tone. They don't leak frustration. They don't mask insecurity with volume. They decide their tone, then speak. That's discipline. It's not about being cold. It's about being intentional. Now let's talk about consistency. Authority is built when your tone is predictable. Not boring. Stable. People trust what's consistent. If your tone swings with mood, people can't rely on you. Leadership requires emotional steadiness. That's the key. Now let's talk about respect. People don't respect tone that begs. They don't respect tone that apologizes for existing. They respect tone that is grounded, direct, present. You don't need to sound important. You need to sound certain. Your tone speaks before your words do. Now let's get practical again. Here's a daily drill. Read one paragraph out loud, slowly. Focus on ending sentences firmly. Pause between thoughts. Don't rush. Don't perform. Just practice control. 5 minutes a day. That discipline compounds fast. It's not about talent. It's about repetition. Now let's address something uncomfortable. Some people won't like your controlled tone. They're used to you being softer, quieter, more accommodating. That's fine. Respect often replaces approval. And respect lasts longer. You have a choice. Be liked for being small. Or be respected for being solid. That's the key. Now let's tie this back. You've learned to slow down. You've learned to use silence. You've learned to listen deeply. Tone is the bridge between inner control and outer influence. If your tone is disciplined, your words carry weight. If your tone is weak, your message collapses. Your tone speaks before your words do. Remember that. This chapter locks in one truth. Authority is not what you say. It's how you carry what you say. Control your tone, and your words will follow. You've learned how to sound like a leader. Now it's time to ensure your message actually lands. Because clarity without structure still fails. You've controlled your tone. Now you must control your message. Chapter 9. Say less, mean more. Most people talk too much. Not because they have too much value, but because they don't trust their value. So they explain, then re-explain, then justify. They pile words on top of words, hoping something sticks. It doesn't. Over-explaining is insecurity disguised as effort. Say that again. Over-explaining is insecurity disguised as effort. Powerful communicators do the opposite. They cut, they refine, they leave space. And what remains lands harder. Short sentences, clear meaning, strong delivery. That's the key. This chapter will change how you speak forever, if you let it. Because saying less is not about being quiet. It's about being precise. And precision is discipline. Let's get clear about the problem. When you over-explain, you're not helping people understand. You're trying to control how they perceive you. You're trying to preempt judgment. You're trying to avoid misunderstanding. You're trying to be liked. That fear leaks into your delivery. And people feel it. You have a choice. You can keep trying to manage reactions. Or you can state your message and let it stand. Only one builds authority. Over-explaining sends a signal. It says, I'm not confident this is enough. I'm not sure you'll agree. I need you to validate this. Even if your content is correct, the signal is weak. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. That's the key. Now let's talk psychology. The human brain respects clarity. It trusts boundaries. It follows structure. Long explanations blur structure. They create cognitive fatigue. When people get tired, they disengage. Short, clear statements do the opposite. They activate attention. They invite processing. They stick. Short sentences. Clear meaning. Strong delivery. Remember that. Now let's expose a lie. People think more words equal more clarity. Wrong. More words usually mean less confidence. Clarity comes from decision. Deciding what matters. Deciding what doesn't. And cutting the rest. That's discipline. Now here's what to stop doing. Stop narrating your thinking. People don't need to hear your internal debate. Stop adding disclaimers. I could be wrong, but if this makes sense. Those phrases shrink your message. Stop answering objections that haven't been raised. That's fear talking. It's not about preparation. It's about permission seeking. You don't need their permission. Say what needs to be said. Now here's what to start doing. Decide your point before you speak. 1 point, not 5. Then say it in 1 or 2 sentences. Then stop. Silence is not awkward. It's authoritative. Silence tells people the message is complete. That's the key. Now let's talk about impact. Strong communicators leave gaps. They don't fill every second with sound. They let words echo. Because meaning needs space to land. If you rush to fill silence, you steal your own power. Short sentences. Clear meaning. Strong delivery. Now let's talk about leadership. Leaders don't lecture. They declare. They don't persuade with volume. They persuade with certainty. Certainty sounds simple. Complication sounds unsure. That's the difference. Now let's get practical. Here's a rule you can use immediately. If a sentence can stand alone, let it. Don't attach a second sentence just to feel safe. Say it. 'Cause that pause does more work than extra words ever could. That's discipline. Now let's address fear directly. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being challenged. Fear of being judged. Those fears push you to over-explain. But here's the truth. If someone wants to misunderstand you, more words won't stop them. If someone wants to challenge you, clarity protects you better than volume. You have a choice. Speak cleanly, or speak defensively. Only one earns respect. That's the key. Now let's talk about authority again. Authority is felt when words are deliberate. When nothing sounds accidental. When nothing sounds padded. Every word earns its place. That level of communication requires restraint. Restraint is strength. It's not about being quiet. It's about being intentional. Now let's correct another mistake. People think say less means say nothing. It means say what matters. Say it clearly. Say it once. If people need more, they'll ask. And when they ask, you respond briefly. That's leadership. Now let's build a habit. Before you speak, ask yourself one question. What do I want them to remember? That's it. Not what do I want to explain. Not what do I want to defend. What do I want them to remember? Then say only that. Short sentences. Clear meaning. Strong delivery. Now let's talk about meetings. The person who talks the most is rarely the leader. The leader speaks, then stops. They don't fill the room with noise. They set direction. They trust their words to stand. That trust comes from self-control. It's not about charisma. It's about discipline. Now let's talk about confidence. Confidence doesn't ramble. Confidence doesn't circle. Confidence arrives, delivers, and leaves. That's the key. Now let's do a reality check. Some people will pressure you to explain more. They're uncomfortable with silence. They're uncomfortable with certainty. That's their problem. Don't let their discomfort pull you back into weakness. You don't need their permission. Now let's lock this in. Over-explaining weakens authority. Conciseness strengthens it. More words dilute meaning. Fewer words sharpen it. It's not about being clever. It's about being clear. It's not about effort. It's about discipline. Say less. Mean more. Let that become your standard. Every time you speak, remember this. Short sentences. Clear meaning. Strong delivery. That's the key. You've learned how to control tone. You've learned how to cut excess. Now it's time to aim your words with purpose. Because direction without intent still wanders. You've mastered restraint. Now you must master direction. Chapter 10. Handle conflict without losing power. Conflict exposes you. Not your intelligence. Not your experience. Your control. The moment tension rises, most people lose power. They react. They defend. They explain. They attack. And in that moment, credibility disappears. Emotional reactions destroy authority instantly. Say that again. Emotional reactions destroy credibility instantly. This chapter is about one thing. Control. Not control over others. Control over yourself. Because the person who stays calm in conflict owns the room. Stay calm. Stay clear. Stay in control. That's the standard. Let's start with the truth. Conflict is unavoidable. Disagreement is normal. Resistance is part of leadership. The problem isn't conflict. The problem is how you show up inside it. You have a choice. You can react emotionally. Or you can respond strategically. Only one keeps your power. Most people confuse aggression with strength. They raise their voice. They interrupt. They push harder. They think intensity equals dominance. It doesn't. It signals insecurity. Real power stays grounded. That's the key. When emotions spike, the brain shuts down clarity. You stop listening. You stop thinking. You start defending your ego. And the conversation becomes a fight to win instead of a problem to solve. That's weakness. Not because you feel emotion, but because you let it drive. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. Now let's break down what actually happens in conflict. Someone challenges you, questions you, disagrees with you. Your nervous system reacts. Heart rate increases. Breathing tightens. Voice speeds up. If you don't interrupt that pattern, you lose control. And once you lose control, you lose authority. You have a choice. Interrupt the reaction, or be ruled by it. That's the key. The strongest communicators do one thing first. They slow down. They don't rush to respond. They don't fill silence. They don't match emotion. They pause. That pause is not hesitation. It's command. Stay calm. Stay clear. Stay in control. Let's get practical. The first rule of conflict communication: never respond at the same emotional speed as the other person. If they're fast, you go slower. If they're loud, you go quieter. If they're reactive, you stay grounded. This contrast shifts power immediately. People mirror energy. When you don't escalate, the tension drops. That's discipline. Now let's talk about what to stop doing. Stop defending yourself automatically. Defensiveness sounds like guilt, even when you're right. Stop explaining every detail. Over-explaining in conflict looks like panic. Stop trying to win the moment. Winning the moment often loses the relationship, the deal, or the respect. That's not strength. That's ego. You don't need their permission. Now here's what to start doing. Acknowledge before you respond. Not agree. Acknowledge. Simple phrases. I hear your concern. I understand your point. Let's slow this down. These statements disarm tension without surrendering authority. That's the key. Next, speak in facts, not feelings. Facts are steady. Feelings are volatile. You can feel emotion internally, but you speak from clarity. Stay calm. Stay clear. Stay in control. Now let's address a dangerous myth. People think calm communication means being passive. Wrong. Calm is not weak. Calm is unshakable. Aggression needs energy. Calm doesn't. That's why calm always wins over time. Now let's talk about tone. Your tone in conflict matters more than your words. A correct statement delivered emotionally will be rejected. A firm statement delivered calmly will be accepted. Your tone speaks before your words do. That's the key. Lower your voice. Slow your pace. Shorten your sentences. Short sentences signal confidence. Rambling signals loss of control. It's not about volume. It's about certainty. Now let's talk about listening again, under pressure. Most people stop listening when they feel attacked. That's when listening matters most. Listening doesn't mean agreeing. It means gathering information. Information gives you leverage. Interrupting gives you nothing. Whoever listens best, leads best, even in conflict. Now here's a critical instruction. Never argue from emotion. Argue from structure. Structure sounds like this. This is the issue. This is the impact. This is what needs to change. Direct. Non-personal. When you remove personal attacks, you remove fuel. That's discipline. Now let's talk about silence in conflict. Silence is powerful here. After you state your position, stop talking. Let it land. If you keep talking, you weaken your stance. Silence forces the other person to process. Silence finishes what words start. That's the key. Now let's deal with provocation. Some people want a reaction. They push buttons. They raise their voice. They use sarcasm. They want you emotional. Because emotional people are easy to control. Don't give them that. You have a choice. React. Or stay centered. Staying centered frustrates manipulators. That's power. Now let's lock in behavior changes. When conflict shows up, you do 3 things. You breathe. You slow your speech. You choose your words. Not perfectly. Deliberately. It's not about never feeling emotion. It's about not being run by it. It's not about being nice. It's about being effective. Stay calm. Stay clear. Stay in control. Now let's address fear again. Fear of confrontation makes people avoid conflict. Fear of judgment makes people overreact inside conflict. Both are weakness patterns. The solution is the same. Discipline. You don't need to avoid conflict. You need to handle it cleanly. And clean handling builds respect fast. People trust those who don't collapse under pressure. Now let's bring this home. Conflict doesn't destroy power. Lack of control does. The moment you master your reactions, you master the situation. That's the key. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. You are responsible for your presence. Choose discipline over impulse. Choose clarity over chaos. Choose control over reaction. Stay calm. Stay clear. Stay in control. Lock that in. You've learned how to speak clearly. You've learned how to say less. You've learned how to hold power under pressure. Now it's time to elevate your presence beyond words. Because power isn't just what you say. It's how you show up before you speak. Chapter 11. Command any room. You are speaking before you speak. Long before the first word leaves your mouth, the room has already decided something about you. Not consciously. Instinctively. Presence is communicated before language. That's the truth most people never learn. They focus on what to say. They ignore how they arrive. And because of that, they lose authority before they even begin. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. That's not motivation. That's human psychology. Let's break it down. Every room runs on signals. Posture, movement, eye contact, pace. People read these signals faster than words. If your body looks uncertain, your words won't save you. If your presence is scattered, your message won't land. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. That's the key. Most people enter rooms unconsciously. They rush in. They look around nervously. They adjust themselves. They fidget. They broadcast hesitation. And then they wonder why no one takes them seriously. You have a choice. You can drift into rooms. Or you can enter deliberately. Only one commands attention. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. Let's talk about grounding. Grounding means your body is settled. Your breath is steady. Your movements are intentional. No wasted motion. No frantic energy. Grounded people feel solid. And solidity creates trust. Now let's talk about posture. Your posture tells the truth before your mouth does. Slouched posture says retreat. Collapsed shoulders say uncertainty. Forward-leaning tension says anxiety. Upright posture says readiness. Open chest says confidence. Stillness says control. You don't need to puff up. You need to settle down. That's discipline. Stand tall. Feet planted. Shoulders relaxed. Not stiff. Not loose. Balanced. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. Now let's talk about movement. Weak presence moves too much. Hands flutter. Feet shift. weight rocks. That movement leaks nervous energy into the room. Strong presence moves with purpose. When you move, it means something. When you stop, it means something. Stillness is not emptiness. It's authority. Silence finishes what words start. That applies to the body too. Now eye contact. Eye contact is not staring. It's connection. Weak communicators avoid it. They glance. They dart. They look away mid-sentence. That signals fear. Strong communicators hold eye contact calmly. Not aggressively. Not challengingly. Calmly. They don't rush to look away. They let connection breathe. That's the key. If eye contact makes you uncomfortable, that's not a personality flaw. It's a discipline gap. You train it. You don't avoid it. You have a choice. Shrink your presence to feel safe, or expand your tolerance to become powerful. Now let's talk about voice. Before words matter, sound matters. A shaky voice undermines even perfect language. A grounded voice carries authority even with simple words. Vocal certainty comes from breath control. Shallow breath creates tension. Deep breath creates steadiness. Before you speak, breathe low. Into the chest. Into the belly. Then speak. Slowly. Pace signals power. Speed signals anxiety. That's the key. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. Now let's address the biggest mistake. Trying to act confident. Acting creates tension. Tension creates inconsistency. People feel fake confidence instantly. Presence is not an act. It's a state. You don't perform presence. You cultivate it. And you cultivate it through discipline. Daily discipline. Now let's get practical. Here is a simple pre-room routine. Before you enter any room, pause. 1 breath in through the nose. 1 slow breath out. Straighten posture. Relax shoulders. Set your pace. That's it. 10 seconds. Those 10 seconds change everything. That's the key. Now let's talk about authority again. Authority doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly. People lean in. They settle. They pay attention. You don't demand attention. You earn it through presence. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. Now let's talk about what to stop doing. Stop rushing into spaces. Stop apologizing with your body. Stop filling silence with movement. Stop scanning the room for approval. That scanning leaks insecurity. You don't need their permission. Now what to start doing? Start entering deliberately. Start holding stillness. Start letting your presence arrive before your words. That's discipline. Now let's address fear again. Fear of being seen. Fear of being judged. Fear of taking up space. That fear makes people shrink. Shrinking never creates respect. Respect responds to steadiness. It's not about being loud. It's about being solid. Now let's talk about leadership presence. Leaders don't rush to speak. They observe first. They listen. They choose their moment. That patience signals confidence. They don't fight for attention. They allow attention to come to them. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. That's the standard. Now let's deal with rooms that feel intimidating. Higher status rooms. New environments. Authority figures. Your body reacts. Heart rate up. Breath shallow. This is where discipline matters most. You ground anyway. You slow anyway. You don't match the room's pressure. You bring your own stability. That's power. Now let's connect this to communication. Words land differently when delivered from presence. The same sentence said from tension feels weak. The same sentence said from grounded stillness feels strong. Words don't create authority. Presence does. That's the key. Now let's lock behavior into habit. Every room, every meeting, every conversation. Enter grounded. Posture first, breath second, pace third, then speak. When you enter grounded, people listen automatically. Repeat that until it becomes identity. Now let's zoom out. This chapter isn't about dominance. It's about self-command. You can't command a room you haven't commanded yourself. Discipline always comes first. It's not about confidence. It's about control. Control of body. Control of breath. Control of pace. That control creates presence. Presence creates authority. Authority creates influence. That's the chain. Now bring it home. You don't need louder words. You don't need smarter sentences. You need a stronger entrance. Because the room decides before you speak. You have a choice. Enter unconsciously. Or enter deliberately. One leads to invisibility. The other leads to respect. That's the key. You've learned how to speak clearly. You've learned how to stay calm under pressure. You've learned how to say less and mean more. Now you understand that communication starts before words. And that changes everything. You've learned to command the room. Now it's time to make this skill permanent. Because skill without consistency fades. And communication mastery is built daily. Chapter 12. Communicate like this every day. This is where it either sticks or it fades. Everything you've learned so far means nothing without repetition. Because communication is not a concept you understand. It's a behavior you live. You don't rise to the level of your knowledge. You fall to the level of your habits. That's the key. Most people consume information. Very few install it. They listen. They nod. They feel motivated. Then they go back to speaking the same way they always have. Nothing changes. Not because they're incapable, but because they're undisciplined. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. This final chapter is about one thing. Consistency. How you speak daily becomes who you are. Read that again. How you speak daily becomes who you are. Not occasionally. Not when it matters most. Daily. Let's be direct. If you only communicate clearly when you're calm, you haven't mastered anything. If you only slow down when you remember to, it's not a skill yet. If you only control tone when you feel confident, you're still fragile. Mastery shows up under pressure. And mastery is built in repetition. You have a choice. Practice intentionally. Or default unconsciously. Only one leads to authority. Now let's expose the final illusion. People think communication improves with time. It doesn't. It improves with attention. Without attention, time just reinforces bad habits. That's the key. Every rushed sentence reinforces rushing. Every apology reinforces shrinking. Every over-explanation reinforces insecurity. You are training yourself every day, whether you mean to or not. So the question is simple. What are you training? Now let's talk about daily discipline. You don't need complex systems. You need standards. Clear, simple standards you follow every day. Here are the core standards. You speak slower than you feel you need to. You finish sentences cleanly. You pause after important points. Every day. Not sometimes. Short sentences. Clear meaning. Strong delivery. That's not a style. That's a rule. Now let's talk about stopping behaviors. Stop narrating your uncertainty. Stop filling silence. Stop explaining past the point of clarity. Stop softening your voice at the end of sentences. That downward tone signals doubt. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. Now what to start doing? Start deciding before you speak. What's the point? Say only that. Start using silence deliberately. Let it work. Start observing your own voice. Pace. Tone. Volume. You don't judge it. You correct it. That's discipline. Now let's talk about environments. Don't wait for big moments to practice. Daily conversations are where mastery is built. Ordering food, talking to coworkers, speaking to family. These moments matter because habits don't know context. How you speak when it doesn't matter is how you'll speak when it does. That's the key. Now let's address resistance. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. Slower speech feels exposed. Silence feels risky. Directness feels sharp. But discomfort is the signal that you're breaking old patterns. Comfort is the signal that nothing is changing. You have a choice. Return to comfort or grow into control. Now let's talk about identity. You are becoming someone who communicates with intention. That means you don't rush. You don't chase approval. You don't apologize for clarity. You don't need their permission. That identity is built one conversation at a time. Now let's talk about self-correction. You will mess up. You'll rush. You'll overtalk. You'll react emotionally. That's normal. The difference is what you do next. Weak communicators justify. Strong communicators correct. You notice it. You reset. You continue. No drama. No self-attack. Discipline, not emotion. That's the key. Now let's lock in a daily practice. At the end of each day, ask yourself 3 questions. Did I slow down when it mattered? Did I say less and mean more? Did I stay calm under pressure? If the answer is no, you don't feel guilty. You adjust tomorrow. That's how habits form. Now let's zoom out. Communication mastery isn't about being impressive. It's about being effective. People trust what feels solid. They follow what feels clear. They respect what feels controlled. You've learned how to create that feeling. Now it's your responsibility to maintain it. Every day, how you speak daily becomes who you are. Say it again. How you speak daily becomes who you are. That's not motivation. That's identity. Now bring everything together. You learned that communication is transmission, not expression. You learned that clarity beats intelligence. You learned to kill the fear of judgment. You learned to speak from certainty. You learned to slow down. You learned to use silence. You learned to listen. You learned to control tone. You learned to say less. You learned to handle conflict. You learned to command rooms. Now comes the final test. Do you live it? Because knowledge without action is noise. And noise is what you've spent this entire audiobook eliminating. You have a choice. Return to old habits. Or become someone new through discipline. One last time. Short sentences. Clear meaning. Strong delivery. Stay calm. Stay clear. Stay in control. That's the standard. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. And consistency turns skills into identity. This is not the end. This is the beginning of how you show up. Every word, every pause, every room. How you speak daily becomes who you are. Lock it in. Communication is not a talent. It is a discipline. From this moment forward, you speak with clarity. You pause with intention. You listen fully. You choose words that land, not words that wander. Stop shrinking your message. Stop apologizing for your presence. Stop explaining yourself into weakness. Every conversation is a chance to lead. Every sentence is a chance to build respect. Every pause is a chance to show control. Now the challenge is simple. Starting today, communicate like your words matter, because they do. Speak clearly. Speak confidently. And never let your voice be the reason you're overlooked again.